further, we saw several men leaving the fields, going to the house, returning with guns, and heading towards Tulsa. After we had traveled many miles into the country and was turning to find our way to Claremont, we looked up the road and saw a race lady coming toward us. My lady friend and I went to meet her. She advised us not to try to pass through a little adjoining town.
There was a group of black people that were trying to escape, women, children, and old people alike were trying to escape from this thing. We're going up the railroad tracks that went by that hill up there in Collinsville. Said that a group of black people came by that hill trying to escape, and somebody thought that they were being attacked and invaded, and apparently they began shooting and killed a whole bunch of those poor folks.
The airplanes continued to watch over the fleeing people like great birds of prey watching for a victim. Although we were over 13 miles from Tulsa, we could, at about 10 p.m., see the smoke rising from the ruins. The next morning, we were informed that Greenwood had been burned. It was then that I shed my first tears. A truck arrived for us about 9 o'clock, and we started for Tulsa. We did not enter through our section, but we were brought through the white section. Can you imagine the humiliation of coming in like that, with many doors thrown open, watching you pass? Some with pity, and others with smiles.
And when a bunch of the colored folks that they were marching down Elgin, I would see them coming, and I'd kept my BB gun under the front porch at that time, and I would run down and grab the BB gun and stick the barrel out through the lattice work and pop the National Guardsmen. And of course, they'd bounce like this and look around, and of course, I was careful enough that I wasn't going to hit anybody in the head or anything like that.
These two brothers, the youngest two, they were kind of smart alecky, and they thought, you know, they'd stir up a riot or stink or something. And I can remember standing behind them and crying when my dad just hauled off and backhanded one of them in the back of the head because he was going to take a gun. And he wasn't going to shoot at the people, he was going to shoot up in the air. And I remember my crying and saying, begging him not to do it. And my dad, you know, telling him he wasn't going to do that to those people. They was only trying to get away themselves.
Soon we reached the Black District, which was so beautiful and prosperous looking when we left. There we found to be piles of bricks, ashes, and twisted iron representing years of toil and savings. We were horror-stricken, but could not shed a tear. At that hour, we mistrusted every person having a white face or blue eyes.
Which he had built a crate on the back to carry the greyhounds in. And he took that crate off when he left the greyhounds, wherever it was, he left them at some kennel or other, and just had a plain pickup truck. And the police saw his truck, and they told him to haul bodies, dead bodies, to wherever they were taking them. I don't know where they took them.
And I saw these 2 truckloads of bodies, dead bodies. They were Negroes with their arms and legs sticking out, you know, through the slats. And it frightened me so, but I kept thinking of them in terms of dolls. On the top of the very, very top of the pile of bodies was a little boy just about my age, and his head flipped over like that, and he looked at me. His mouth was open, and he was in brown pants and a blue shirt, and just looked like he'd been frightened to death. And so I screamed, and Jesse came in, but by that time the 2 trucks had passed on.
After black Tulsans were incarcerated, curiosity seekers, looters, and souvenir hunters casually strolled through the smoldering ruins.
Well, I had a friend, a girlfriend, and one day after the riot had subsided, or possibly was still, they were still protecting and giving the colored people sanctuary. Well, she came out and she had a package of spearmint gum, Wrigley spearmint gum. And perhaps there were 40 or 50 packages of gum in a little square box, about so square and maybe 2 inches deep. And she was passing the gum out to all the kids in the neighborhood. And of course we asked, where did you get it? And she said, oh, Daddy got it over in Niggertown, which was a clear indication that white people looted the colored people over in the Greenwood area. When they doubted about it, of course, we didn't think anything about it. We just took the gum and chewed it.
Martial law was less than benevolent. Field Order Number 3 prohibited the holding of funerals at churches. But in reality, this prohibition pertained to black funerals only. White funerals went on as usual.
Overnight, these people had nothing. And they had to start over again. A person who had office and clients or patients or customers had nothing. And the people that were his clients and their clients and patients and customers had nothing. And so it was extremely difficult for them to get on their feet.
It was pathetic when you think about it. Out all of our 7 years, that's when I said, my husband and I lost more than anybody in North Tulsa because we lost 7 years of our money in one night. And we had altogether 10 different business places for rent. Today I'm paying rent.
Few black Tulsans had insurance. And those who did had clauses which voided the policies in case of a riot. Those making a claim had to prove that the city or state government was negligent in protecting their property. An impossible burden because the victors had already begun to rewrite the history and insulate themselves from blame. An all-white grand jury placed the blame for the Holocaust squarely on the black population. Also blaming the black population was Tulsa's white churches, the Chamber of Commerce, and of course Tulsa's white newspapers.
In this old nigger town, there are a lot of bad niggers, and a bad nigger is about the lowest thing that walks on 2 feet. Give a bad nigger his booze, his dope, and a gun, and he thinks he can shoot up the world. And all these 4 things were to be found in nigger town: booze, dope, bad niggers, and guns. The Tulsa Tribune makes no apology to the police commissioners or to the mayor of this city for having pled with them to clean up the cesspools in this city. Tulsa Tribune, June 4th, 1921.
Incredibly, after all the yellow journalism that had been published at the time about the incident and prior to the incident by white-owned newspapers, the one indictment returned by the grand jury of a newspaper was against Mr. A.J. Smitherman. one of the most influential black citizens in Tulsa, owner of the black newspaper. And that comes after his offices, his newspaper offices, were destroyed and burned in the riot. He left Tulsa and never returned.
Cities across America offered assistance.